today we are going to see a topic which is called cloud migration. Okay. So first of all, what is cloud migration? Okay. So nowadays organization are moving towards cloud. Okay. As you all know, they are moving towards cloud due to many reasons. Okay. As you all know, there is scalability and cost. There are many factors which you will see in next slide. Okay. So, but still there are many companies, they are depending on their on-premise service, which is their physical infrastructure. Okay. They have their own data center. They'll have their own system administrator, network engineer to manage all those things. So many companies still have their on-premise data center and they are migrating towards cloud. Okay. It can be any cloud. It can be AWS, can be Azure, can be Google cloud provider, it can be Alibaba, it can be Oracle, it can be IBM, it can be anything. Okay. So there are many cloud providers. So many organizations are moving toward this cloud thing. Okay. And many organizations are using something called multi-cloud architecture. Okay. Okay. So which is they're using AWS plus Azure or Azure plus GCP. Okay. So this is also a type of migration. For example, let's say organization is working on AWS and for some reasons it can be performance issue, it can be due to cost. Okay. There are many factors. What they are doing, they are migrating to Azure. Okay. This is also a type of migration. So this we call it as cloud to cloud migration. Okay. Wow. Okay. So when we talk about migration, there are primary 5 stages in migration. Okay. Wow. So one is preparation. Okay. Second one is planning. Third one is the stage where they do the migration. Then we have operation. Then we have optimization. Okay. So in any migration, it can be cloud to cloud migration or it can be on-prem to cloud migration. So these are the primary 5 stages which is included in the process of execution of cloud migration. So these are the 5 stages. Okay. 5 important stages which organization use to migrate from, it can be cloud to cloud migration or it can be on-premise to cloud migration. Okay. Wow. So, and migration, it can be any resource. Okay. It can be an application. Okay. Or it can be a website which is hosted on-premise, or it can be a storage, okay, storage related service. Okay. Okay. So it can be anything. It can be database. Okay. So all these things can be migrated from on-premise to cloud. Okay. It can be any cloud provider. It can be AWS, Azure, GCP. It can be anything. Okay. So this is the introduction to cloud migration. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me, or else we can move on to the next slide.
Shyam, before preparation, don't we do any planning? Because after planning only we can do. I
Yeah, I will
don't know
explain
the.
about that. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll explain about the strategy or what are the things our organization will consider before migrating from one thing to another. Okay, it can be from on-premise to cloud or it can be cloud to cloud. Okay. There are multiple factors which organization will consider before migration. Okay, so I'll explain at that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So next we will see what are the benefits of migrating. Okay, so organization have been migrating from on-premise to cloud. I'll explain about what are the benefits for our organization to migrate from on-prem to cloud. Okay. So first one, as you all know, is scalability. Okay. Scalability is nothing but so the organization can scale up or down according to the workload. Okay. According to the workload, they can either scale up the resources or scale down, or it can be a CPU, can be RAM, can be storage, can be anything. Okay. So many companies, one of the main benefits of using cloud computing is the scalability. Okay. So they can scale easily when compared to on-premise, they can able to scale easily and compared to on-premise infrastructure. Okay. Okay. So this is one of the main advantage of using cloud. Okay. Benefits of migrating from on-prem to cloud. Okay. So then we have cost. Okay. Wow. So as you all know, so cloud works on pay-as-you-go model, and there will be lower operational overhead. Okay, operational overhead is nothing but okay, you no need to manage the infrastructure. You don't need to manage the network security related things. Okay, so everything will be taken care of by the cloud providers. It can be AWS, Azure, it can be anything. Okay, so this is one of the main advantage of migrating from on-prem to cloud. Okay, so next we will see the what are the disadvantages also, what are the challenges also in the next slide. Okay, but for now you're exploring about the benefits of migrating to cloud. Okay, okay. Then performance. Okay, so as you all know, cloud providers have their infrastructure globally. Okay, so they have their global infrastructure so that we can deploy our application anywhere. Okay, any we can take any geographical region. Okay, and we can deploy our application in any region so that the end users will face will have the reduced network latency. Okay, wow. So for example, let's take a customer is from India. So if the application is running in Mumbai, he will be having the least network latency. So like that, what we can do, we can improve the performance by running the same application in multiple regions because cloud providers have their infrastructure globally all over the globe. Okay, so that we can improve the performance of the end user. Okay, so through this global infrastructure, what we can do all over the globe, there will be customers, right? So that we can run the application or the website. It can be anything. Okay, you can application, website, server all over the globe, so that the end user will face low network latency, which is directly associated with the high performance. Okay. So latency is nothing but delay. Okay, there will be low delay. Okay, when the data center is nearer to the end user. Okay, so that the performance will be high when we talk about cloud infrastructure. Okay, so then we have digital experience. So user can access the cloud service from anywhere. Okay, we are able to create a resource in North Virginia region, in Singapore region, right? So this is all because of the digital experience which cloud platform provides, so that they can contribute. Okay. Okay. So users can use cloud service and data from anywhere. Okay. Even I can, from India, I can launch my EC2 instance or any database in North Virginia region, Singapore region, Tokyo region. It can be in any region. Okay. So these are the main advantage of migrating to cloud, which is first one is scalability. You can scale up or down according to the workload. Okay. It can be CPU, RAM, storage, network. It can be anything. And cost. Okay. When you talk about cost, it will cloud computing follows pay as you go model, and there will be no operational cost. Okay. Then we have performance. So as you all know, cloud have their global infrastructure, have their data center all over the globe. So we can deploy our application in different geographical locations so that the end user will get the no network latency, which will result in high performance. Okay. Then we have digital experience. So through console, we'll be able to create our AWS resource from anywhere. Okay. From India, I can able to create database, server, storage service. Okay. So it can be accessed to from anywhere, which we call it as digital experience for the organization. Okay. Okay. So any doubts in this benefits of migrating to cloud? So when you talk about the challenges, I'll explain about the preparation, planning, and all those things. What are the things the organization should consider before migrating from on-prem to cloud, or it can be from cloud to cloud. Okay. So I'll explain that in the challenges. So for now, everyone has understood what are the benefits of migrating to cloud. What are the benefits you get when you run your application in the cloud provider environment. Okay, that's what I was explaining. So if you have any doubts in this, you can ask me, or else we can move on to the next topic, which is challenges. Okay. Any doubts? Okay. So next we'll move on to the what are the common cloud migration challenges companies face. Okay. Okay. So first one is lack of strategy, which we will discuss in the next thing, which is what are the different type of migration strategy companies follow for the migration thing. Okay. So the main challenge is, so all these things cover in one single thing, which is called key performance indicators. Okay. Okay. So for strategizing, okay, lack of strategy is nothing but, so many organizations will start to migrating to cloud without giving some sufficient time or attention to their strategy. Okay. So for that, they may face some issues. Okay. So they should know which application or which storage or which data should be in on-prem and which we are going to migrate to cloud service. Okay. So they should have a clear strategy of this thing, which organizations should follow. Okay. So for that, we have something called key performance indicators. Okay. Which are migration velocity. Okay. At which pace we are going to migrate the application from on-prem to cloud. Okay. Then organization must know about the downtime duration. Okay. So when you are migrating, the application will not be working, so that the the customer will not be able to access that particular application or website. So that we should know when will be the downtime duration will be. Then you should know the post migration performance. Okay. So when we are running our application on on-premise data center, you know that there will be some CPU or some memory utilized, right? So after the migration also, what companies should do, they should check the performance of the application, the same application which they are migrated to cloud, and they should check the post-migration performance in their cloud providers. In their respective cloud providers, they must check the performance of the particular resource. It can be database, it can be a virtual server. Okay, so it can be anything. Okay, so then we have something called TCO. Okay, which is total cost of ownership. Okay, okay. So a company should know what are we actually saving. Okay, what are we actual cost saving when compared to on-premise infrastructure. Okay, so we have been running on-premise infrastructure. From migrating from on-prem to cloud, what are the actual cost saving we are doing? Okay, so these are the things which companies should know. So this we call it as key performance indicators or KPI. Okay, so these all comes under the lock-up strategy and management. Okay, so all these things come under lack of strategy and cost management. Okay, so cost management, the companies, the organization should know the total cost of ownership, which is how much they are saving from uh, moving from on-prem to cloud. Okay, so these are the different type of indicators which organizations should know. Okay, okay. So then we have data security and compliance. Okay, so as I said before, so cloud service usually will say shared responsibility model. Cloud computing is a shared responsibility model. Okay, so in which the cloud providers is responsible for securing the infrastructure, okay, the data center, the network, the storage. So which is provided by the cloud providers. Okay, cloud providers will secure the infrastructure. Okay. And as a customer or a user, so we must be responsible for securing the data. Okay. So there are some security service. So for securing a server, okay, or a database, okay, there are many things like encryption, like web application firewall. We are using security groups, NACL, right? So those are the things which we have to do in the point of from a customer point of view for securing the data and workloads. Okay. So when we move on to on-prem to cloud, there will be some security compromise. For that only, the company should know. Okay, so migration process is itself is a risky process. Okay, it's not securely, it is a security risk. Okay, so the company should know what are the things they are transferring. They should be transferring large volumes of data which may be sensitive, and they should have the control access the application across different environment. Okay, so they should know which are the application or the storage that should be moved from on-prem to cloud, which are things which should be retained in the cloud. Okay, they should know all these things before doing their strategy. Okay, so these are the common cloud migration challenges organization face, which is first one is lack of strategy, which includes the key performance indicators. Okay, then we have cost management, in which the organization should know what are the cost saving they are doing by migrating from on-prem to cloud, or it can be a cloud to cloud migration also. Okay, so these are the things companies should consider. And the next we are going to see about the strategy. What are the different type of strategies organization follow for cloud migration? Then we are talking about data security and compliance. So as you all know, cloud providers follow shared responsibility model. Okay. So they are not fully responsible and we are not fully responsible. It's a shared responsibility model in which the cloud providers will be securing only the infrastructure. And as a customer, we are responsible for securing the data and workloads. Okay. And we should know how we should transfer a large volume which is sensitive, and you should have access control for the application for the different environment. Okay, so these are the different type of cloud migration challenges which organization face. Okay, okay, so any doubts in this? Okay, okay. So next topic which we are going to see is what are the different strategies, migration strategies, okay, which AWS or Azure will follow for their migration. Okay. The next topic which we are going to see is migration strategies. Okay. Okay. So when we talk about migration strategies, the first migration strategy has come with 5 hours. Okay. So here I have written 7 hours, but first it was only 5 hours. Okay. Which is rehost, first one, relocate, replatform, refactor, and repurchase. So these are things in 2011, they came up with this strategy, this cloud migration strategy with 5 hours. Okay. So after some days, after some years, so AWS introduced these two things, which is retire and retain. Okay. So in total, there are 7 hours, which is cloud migration strategy companies follow to move from on-prem to cloud. Okay. So what are the different cloud migration strategy? When you should use that, we are all going to see that now. Okay. So first we are going to see about rehost. Okay. So rehost is nothing but they call it as lift and shift. Okay. For example, let's take, so rehost is nothing but we move the application, okay, without any changes. Okay. Without any changes in code or architecture. Okay. Okay, wow. So for example, let's say we have a Java web application. Okay. It's running in a local data center, which is a on-premise server. Okay. We want to move from Java on-prem to cloud. Okay, what we can do, we can rehost the same application in a AWS EC2 instance or Azure virtual machine. Okay. Okay. So, or we can use GCP or we can use Google Compute Engine. Okay. We can use any of this. Okay. So these are the compute services which we can use to migrate. Because we are what we are doing, we are just rehosting the same application from local data center, which is on-premise data center, to the cloud virtual machine. It can be any cloud providers. Okay. This strategy we call it as rehost. Okay. So the same application runs on the cloud virtual machine instead of on-premise servers. So that is the only difference. Okay. Wow. So this we call it as rehost. Okay. So then we have something called relocate. Wow. Okay. So relocate and rehost might be confusing. I'll try to explain. Okay. So when we talk about relocate, okay. Okay. So when we talk about relocate, okay, so we are moving the entire infrastructure, okay, to cloud without any modification. Okay. For example, let's say there is a server, okay, which has VMware installed. So as you all know, VMware is a hypervisor software which is used for virtualization. Okay. So this is a physical server in which VMware is installed, which is a hypervisor software used for virtualization. Okay. To create multiple virtual machine in a single server. Okay. In a single server, with the help of the hypervisor software like VMware, Hyper-V, VirtualBox, what we can do, we can have create multiple virtual machine and we can deploy multiple application, right? So in relocate, what they will do, they will they will move the entire infrastructure to a virtual machine. Okay. So what they will do, they will launch a EC2 instance or virtual machine in the in the cloud. Okay. And they will use the same VMware and they will install the VMware and they will deploy the application, which we call it as relocate. Okay. So here we are only moving the application without any changes, but in relocate, in rehost, we are only rehosting the application. But in relocate, what we are doing, we are moving the same infrastructure to the cloud. Okay. Without any modification, what we are doing, in both things, VMware are used. Okay. So in physical infrastructure also, we are installing VMware, which is hypervisor software, and we have been doing all those applications. But after migration, what we are doing, we are installing, we are creating a virtual machine in AWS, Azure, GCP, and we are installing the same software. Okay. So that we call it as the moving the entire infrastructure to cloud. Here we are moving only the application, as you all know, rehosting the application. Here we are relocating the entire infrastructure to the cloud. Okay. So that's the only difference between rehost and relocate. Okay. So here you are moving only the application. Here we are moving the whole infrastructure. Okay. If we are using VMware in this data center or physical infrastructure, we are also installing the same software VMware in the on-prem on the cloud virtual machine also. Okay. So there will be a slight difference between rehost and relocate. Okay. Any doubts in this?
Here, in the case of relocate, from the on-premise, we have VMware.
Okay.
Should we only change the image to the AWS, or how the relocation will be happening?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear? Come again?
Here in on-prem center,
Okay.
we have a VMware machine that is
Yes.
using hypervisor.
Okay.
So we have several applications running here.
Okay.
How it will be moved and relocated into AWS or Azure?
Okay. So okay. So these are the different type of strategies. So in service, I will show about what are the different AWS service which is followed. Okay. So now we are only discussing about the what are the different type of strategies companies use to move from on-prem to cloud. Okay. So when we talk about service, I will show what are the different type of migration service organization use. Okay, once I complete these things. Okay.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So for now I am writing it down. So when I send you a PPT, I will make sure I create another page and write all these things and I will send it to you. Okay. So or else this image is enough. Okay. So it will have all these things. I will explain this also. Okay. Okay. So the difference between rehost and relocate is in rehosting, we are only moving the application from on-prem to cloud without any changes. But when we talk about relocate, we are moving the total infrastructure from the on-prem to the cloud. So that's the only difference between rehost and relocate. Okay. Okay. So then we have re-platform. Okay. So wait a minute. Okay. Okay. So when we talk about read platform, so they call read platform as okay, lift, tinker, and shift. Okay. Okay. So in read platform, what they will do, they'll move the application. Okay. With small optimization. Okay. So I'll explain that what the small optimization. I will explain a real-time example also. Okay. Without any core architecture change. Okay. There will be no change in core architecture. There will be some optimization which we have to do when we are migrating from on-prem to cloud. Okay. For example, let's say there is a server which has MySQL running. Okay. Wow. Okay. This is a physical server. Okay. So while migrating from on-prem to cloud, what we have to do, we have to use the database services, which is in the AWS, right? So if you are migrating MySQL, we can use RDS, which is a managed database service, which is a relational database service available in the AWS, right? So this is a small optimization which we are doing. Okay. So instead of moving the MySQL in another server, okay, we can launch another EC2 instance. And what we can do, we can install MySQL also. Okay. But when we do re-platform, when we move from this strategy, what we are doing, we are not only lifting and shifting, we are doing a small optimization, which is we are making use of the database server, which is available, which is provided by the cloud provider. Okay. So for example, as I said, so if you are having a self-managed MySQL server, what we can do, we can move the database to RDS, which is the managed database service, which is more easy because this is the AWS fully AWS managed service, right? So when you talk about RDS relational database service, this is the AWS service, so which is fully managed by AWS. Okay. So this we call it as re-platform. Okay. We are moving the same application or moving the same database from a self-managed MySQL server to a managed database service, which is a RDS. RDS is the AWS service. Okay. Okay. In which we can migrate the same database from the physical server to the AWS cloud provider. Okay. So for database, we have database migration service, which I show. Okay. I'll show that after I completed all these things. Okay. Okay. So this is about re-platform. We are changing the platform from one thing to another. Yes, Prabhu.
Sham, what is the optimization we are doing? Because between the rehost and the replatform, so the difference of what I'm saying is that small optimization. Okay, so but since the both strategy we are doing the moving the application okay, from on-premises to cloud services, right? So
Yes,
what is
yes.
the optimization in the re-platform?
So here, okay. So if you are using a physical server, okay, we are moving that to a virtual machine. So that's the only difference, right? We are
Yeah,
not
correct.
doing. So this is if you talk about MySQL, okay, if you are using MySQL in a physical server, you have to manage all those things. Okay. But when we talk about RDS, it is fully managed by AWS. Okay. So it will be very easy. Okay. When we use fully managed AWS service. Okay. So that is a small optimization which we are doing.
You mean to say that when we are running the on-premises, we will be using the MSQL in our on-premises, but when we go to the AWS, we don't need the MSQL where that RDS is already available with the AWS.
Yeah. So I will explain it another thing. Okay. So for example, let's take we are running our physical server. Okay. It's running in VMware. Okay. So what we are doing, we want to containerize our application. Okay. So container is a topic. So, so recently, many companies are moving from EC2 to containers, which is Docker container, Kubernetes container. It can be any container. Okay. That which is containerizing their application. Okay. So this is an example of re-platform. Okay. We are changing the platform of the whole application. Okay.
Okay, that is happening in that AWS itself. But while moving from that on-premises to cloud, what is the optimization? That's what my question was belongs to. Since you told that MSQL is used in the physical service, whereas the RDS is already available, so the MSQL is not required in the AWS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
So
okay,
instead of launching an EC2 instance and installing MySQL, okay,
okay,
so we have AWS self-managed service called RDS. Okay,
okay,
so like
okay,
that we have also for non-relational database also we have DynamoDB. For all those database types, we have many types of AWS managed database service. Okay,
okay, okay,
so which is fully managed by AWS. Okay, so it will reduces the management effort because that's the only thing. Okay.
okay, Shyam, okay.
Okay. So when we rehost the same MySQL server to cloud, what we can do, we can launch a EC2 instance, then we can install MySQL. That we can use as a database server also. Okay, wow. That is rehosting. But here we are changing the whole platform of the database here. Okay, so that's the only difference. Okay. So
அஷம் அப்ப MySQL இருக்க டேட்டாபேஸ் ஸ்ட்ரக்சரும் RDSல இருக்கிறதும் வேற மாதிரி தானே இருக்கும்?
இல்ல வேற மாதிரி இருக்காது, சேமா தான் இருக்கும். It will be same. We are just changing the platform அவ்வளவுதான். Okay.
Okay.
So database நம்ம RDS யூஸ் பண்ணோம் அப்படின்னா we can use elastic cache அது மாதிரிலாம் நிறைய we have caching services. So அதெல்லாம் RDS ஓட what we can do, we can integrate and use. Okay. And it is fully managed by AWS service. RDS is a managed database service in AWS. Okay. 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 So then we have refactor, or we call it as re-architect. Okay. Okay. So which is we are changing the whole architect of the application. Okay. For example, let's say we have a monolithic e-commerce application. Okay, so monolithic is nothing but we have a single application base, which is architecture, which will be used for the smaller projects. Okay, so when we have a small team and we are working on a small projects, can go with a single database code. Okay, sorry, single application code. Okay, okay. For example, let's say when you are launching a single monolithic application in the physical server. Okay, so what we can do, we can move this monolithic architecture to the microservice architecture. Okay, which is we can divide the small microservice architecture is something which is used for the complex projects. Okay, when you are collaborating with many people, they'll go with microservices so that, for example, let's take payment service as separate microservice, or user account as a different microservice. Okay, or we can say order page. Okay, so in commerce website, you will have payment service separately, user account separately, and order page separately. Okay, so instead of having a single application code, what we can do, we can re-architect the whole thing when we are migrating from on-prem to cloud. Okay, for example, let's take there is a monolithic application which is running on a physical server, on-prem server. So using this re-architecting or refactor migration strategy, what we can do, we can convert this monolithic architecture to a microservice architecture. Okay. Yeah. So this we call it as refactor or re-architect. Okay. Okay. Or let's say we have a EC2 instance. Okay, so not EC2 instance. For example, let's say we are migrating from Azure to cloud. Okay. So what we can do is, for example, let's say there is a Azure virtual machine and we want to migrate to cloud. So before migrate to cloud, what we can do, I want this server to be serverless. Okay. So we have functions like Lambda, right? Or doing API calls. Okay. So what we can do, instead of running the code in virtual machine, what we can do when we are migrating to AWS, we can use AWS service like Lambda, which is a serverless service. Okay. It is like virtual machine, but we will not manage the server, right? So this we call it as refactor or re-architect. We are changing the architecture of the whole application. Okay. Okay. So this we call it as refactor. So this is one of the cloud migration strategy used. Okay. So any doubts in this?
No.
Okay. So the next thing which we are going to do is repurchase. Okay. Okay. So repurchase is nothing but, okay. So we are replacing the existing application. Okay. So for example, let's say there is a CRM application which is running in our physical infrastructure. Okay. What we are doing, we are replacing this existing application to a cloud-based SaaS product. Okay. So if you are using a CRM, this is the software. Okay, right? The software which is used. Okay. So what we can do, we can repurchase. We are replacing the existing application. For example, in this case, we have a local CRM software which is used for managing all the customers. What we can do when you are migrating to cloud, we can use cloud-based SaaS products like Salesforce. Okay. So like that, there are many cloud-based CRM platforms, right? So this we call it as repurchasing. Okay. So repurchase is nothing but we replace the existing application with the cloud-based SaaS product. Okay. Okay. So this is one of the strategy followed when we migrate from on-prem to cloud. Okay. So any doubts in this? So these are the 5 R's, which is initially strategized for migration for migrating from on-prem to cloud. Then AWS introduced with retire and retain. Okay, retire is nothing but you can delete all those things in the all the service resources in the on-prem, which you call it as retire. Okay, which is retiring all the services which is running on on-prem. Then we have retain, which is we can retain the legacy application, like the important sensitive thing, which we can retain. Okay, sensitive database or sensitive data. Okay, so that we call it as retain. Okay, one. So still many companies follow hybrid cloud model, which is using the on-prem and the cloud. Okay, so on-prem they will use only for the security issues, so sensitive data. Okay, they will retain those things in the on-prem service itself, and they will move the other things to the cloud. Okay, so that's that we call it as retain. Okay, so retire is you delete all the resources after migrating from on-prem to cloud. Retain is we retain some of the sensitive information or database in the physical infrastructure for some security reasons or sensitive data that will come under retain. Okay. Okay. So these are the 7 R's, which is rehost, relocate, replatform, refactor, repurchase, retire, and retain. Okay. Okay. So, so this is the diagram which will be very easy. Okay. First is discovery. Okay. For this discovery, we have something called AWS Discovery Service. Okay, that is a migration service. So what the first step, what we have to do, we have to discover what are the configuration. Okay, so what are the network, storage, or what are the software dependencies installed. Okay, for example, let's say we have Java application means we must discover that there is a Java dependency. Okay, like that we have to discover. Okay, so for that we have something called AWS Discovery Service. Okay, so I'll show that now. So I will show what are the different AWS services, okay, which are available for migrating from on-prem to AWS. Okay. Okay. So if you go into this thing, okay, so if you go into, you select migration and transfer. Okay, we have many things, which is application discovery service. Okay, this is the first step with which will come in the this is thing. Discovery la in our room dina. First thing which will come is application discovery service. So then we have application migration service, which will follow lift and shift, which is rehosting the same application. Okay, that we can do with the help of the application migration service. When we want to database migration service, data sync. Okay, data sync is nothing but we fastly move, we increase the pace of the, we can automate the thing. Okay, we can automate the moving. Here you can see in rehosting, here you can see either you can manually do the process of installing, configuring, and deploying the application, or with the help of use migration tools like data sync, what we can do, we can automate this process, this migration process, this rehosting process. Okay. Okay. So, so this is the latest thing, which is AWS Transform. So if you go to Migration Hub, it is asking you to go with AWS Transform. Okay. So with the help of AI, now they are introduced with this AWS Transform to transfer infrastructure application and code with agentic AI. Okay. Okay. So then we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize which should be which resource is more priority, which we have to prioritize. Then we have to go with the strategy, whether we want to relocate application or we have to rehost the same application, re-platforming. Okay, so determine the new platform is modify the underlying infrastructure. Then we use migration to. Then we go to validation, transition, and it go to production. Okay, or we have to repurchase. Okay, so you have to buy any licensing models, or we have to buy any products like Salesforce, Zoho CRM. Okay, like that we have to repurchase, drop and shop. Okay, Then we have refactoring, which is rewriting the whole application from the start. Okay. We change the infrastructure, app code development will go. It will go full software development lifecycle. Then it will go to integration. Then it will go to validation. Okay. That we call it as refactor or re-architect. Okay. Then we have retain and we have retire. Okay. So these are two things which is introduced by AWS. Okay. So first, the important 5 R's are these things. Okay. Then AWS came up with retain and retire. Okay. So these are the 7 R's, which is these are the cloud migration strategy which organization use. So they will determine any one migration path. So according to their need. Okay. Whether they want to relocate, there we have to rehost the same application, or they want to re-platform the whole application, reshape the application, or they want to repurchase the software as a service or licensing, or they want to change the whole architecture of the application in which the application is running. Okay. So this image is from the AWS official documentation. Okay. So if you go into AWS official documentation, you will be able to see this diagram. Okay. So this will explain about everything which I have said before. Okay. So any doubts? Okay. So that's it for today. So if you have any doubts, you can ask. Okay. Or else we can end this session.
ஷியாம், கம்பெனில பாயிண்ட் ஆஃப் வியூல எப்படி பண்ணுவாங்க? இத 5 ஆரும் யூஸ் பண்ணுவாங்களா ஃபர்ஸ்ட்?
ஃபர்ஸ்ட் எது யூஸ் புரியல.
கம்பெனி பாயிண்ட்ஸ் ஆஃப் வியூல எப்படி பண்ணுவாங்க?
ஸோ அதுதான் சொல்றேன். ஸோ இது வந்து எந்த ஸ்ட்ராட்டஜி வேணா கம்பெனிஸ் வந்து யூஸ் பண்ணலாம். ஓகேவா? ஸோ இதில் என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வந்து தே வில் டிஸ்கவர். ஓகே, அதுதான் இந்த இதில் இருந்துச்சு. ஸோ ஃபர்ஸ்ட் தே வில் டிஸ்கவர் தி அப்ளிகேஷன். ஸோ என்ன கான்ஃபிகரேஷன் இருக்கு, என்ன நெட்ஒர்க் யூஸ் பண்றோம், என்ன சாஃப்ட்வேர் டிபெண்டன்சிஸ் இருக்கு, எதை வச்சு டிஸ்கவர் பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா, ஸோ இந்த அப்ளிகேஷன் டிஸ்கவரி சர்வீஸ் வச்சு என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா தே வில் டிஸ்கவர். ஓகே, ஆன் பிரேம்ல இருக்கிற எங்க இருக்குது, ஸோ ஆன் பிரேமிஸ்ல என்னென்ன இருக்கு அப்படின்னு சொல்லி ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வந்து டிஸ்கவர் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஓகே, ஸோ தென் தே வில் ப்ரியாரிட்டைஸ். ஸோ எது இதுக்கு வந்து ஹை ப்ரையாரிட்டி இருக்கு, எது வந்து நம்ம ஃபர்ஸ்ட் மூவ் பண்ணணும். ஓகே, ஸோ இந்த டிஸ்கவரியில வந்து என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா எது ஷுட் ரீடைன் இன் தி ஆன் பிரேம்ல ரீடைன் ஆயிருக்கணும், எதை வந்து நம்ம வந்து கிளவுட் ப்ரொவைடருக்கு வந்து மைக்ரேட் பண்ண போறோம். ஸோ அப்படிங்கிற எல்லாமே வந்து இந்த டிஸ்கவரி அண்ட் ப்ரியாரிட்டைஸ்லேயே வந்துடும். ஓகே, தென் எந்த பாத் சூஸ் பண்றாங்களோ, ஸோ நம்ம ஜஸ்ட் ரீலொகேட் பண்ண போறோமா, அப்படியே பண்ண போறோமா, ஆர் நம்ம வந்து வேற ரீஹோஸ்ட் பண்ண போறோமா, ஆர் நம்ம ஏதாவது சேஞ்சஸ் பண்ண போறோமா மைக்ரேட் பண்றதுக்கு முன்னாடி. ஸோ அது ஃபார் எவ்ரி அப்ளிகேஷனுக்கு வந்து மாறும். ஓகே, ஸோ நான் ஒரு ஆர்கிடெக்சர் இருக்கு அப்படின்னா தேர் வில் பி வர்ச்சுவல் மிஷின், லேம்டா இருக்கும், சர்வர்லெஸ் ஃபங்க்ஷன் இருக்கும், டேட்டா பேஸ் இருக்கும், ஸோ நிறைய இருக்கும், சாஃப்ட்வேர் அஸ் சர்வீஸ் இருக்கும். ஓகே, ஸோ நிறைய வந்து யூஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஸோ அந்தந்த அப்ளிகேஷன் வந்து நம்ம எப்படி மைக்ரேட் பண்றோம் அப்படிங்கறத வந்து தே வில் ஸ்ட்ராட்டஜைஸ். ஓகே, அவங்க வந்து பிளான் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஓகே, ஸோ பிளான் பண்ணிட்டு தான் என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க அப்படின்னா தே வில் மூவ் தேர் சர்வர். சொல்லு.
டிஸ்கவரினா அது ஒரு ஆட்டோமேட்டட் வேயா இல்ல நம்மளா மேனுவலா அந்த இந்த ஏபிஐல இங்க கொடுக்கணுங்களா?
இதுல வந்து நம்ம டீடைல்ஸ் வந்து கொடுக்கணும், அந்த சர்வரோட இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் பத்தி கொடுக்கணும்.
ஓகே ஓகே ஓகே.
இதுல கொடுத்துட்டோம் அப்படின்னா ஸோ அதுல என்னென்ன இது ஆகுது. ஓகே,
இது வந்து டிசைட் பண்ணிருங்களா AWS?
ஆமா இது வந்து டிசைட் பண்ணிடுறோம். ஓகே
ஓகே ஓகே.
ஸோ அதுக்கேற்ற மாதிரி நம்ம அப்ளிகேஷன் இது பண்ணணுமா, டேட்டாபேஸ் மைக்ரேட் பண்ணணுமா, ஓகே, ஸோ அதுக்கேற்ற மாதிரி வந்து சர்வீசஸ் வந்து மாறும். ஓகே, ஸோ VMware ஒரு க்ளவுட்னா VMware அப்படியே நம்ம மைக்ரேட் பண்றோமா. ஓகே, ஸோ எனக்கு டீட்டெயிலாக இந்த சர்வீஸ்குள்ளெல்லாம் போல. ஸோ ஐ ஜஸ்ட் எக்ஸ்பிளைன். நெக்ஸ்ட் வெபினார்ல ட்ரை பண்றேன். ஐ ட்ரை டு எக்ஸ்பிளைன் எனி ஒன் ஆஃப் தி சர்வீஸ். ஸோ இந்த ஸ்ட்ராட்டஜி என்னென்ன சர்வீஸ் யூஸ் பண்ணி எப்படி பண்றாங்க அப்படிங்கறது ஐ வில் எக்ஸ்பிளைன் நெக்ஸ்ட் வெபினார். ஓகே
ஓகே.
ஸோ நீங்க ஜஸ்ட் தியரிட்டிக்கலாக தான் பார்த்துருப்போம், ரொம்ப ப்ராக்டிக்கலாக எதுவும் இல்லை. ஓகே, பட் இந்த 7 ஹவர்ஸுங்கிறது ரொம்ப ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் when we talk about migration. ஓகே,
இந்த மைக்ரேஷன் வந்து கிளவுட் இன்ஜினியர் பண்ணுவாங்களா இல்ல வேற என்ன ரோலுக்கு இந்த மைக்ரேஷன் டாபிக் ஒர்க் ஆகும்?
புரியல. கிளவுட்ல
இந்த மைக்ரேஷன் கிளவுட்
இந்த
மைக்ரேஷன்
ஒர்க்
யார்
சொல்றீங்களா?
எந்த ரோல் பண்ணுவாங்க, யார் பண்ணுவாங்க? ஐ மீன்
இது வந்து கிளவுட் இன்ஜினியர்ஸே பண்ணுவாங்க. ஓகே, ஸோ கிளவுட்
Okay.
இன்ஜினியர்ஸ், சர்வர் அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேட்டர்ஸ், ஸோ அவங்களாம் வந்து சேர்ந்து தான் ஒர்க் பண்ணி தான் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஓகே, ஸோ நெட்வொர்க்
Okay.
இன்ஜினியர்ஸ் இருப்பாங்க. ஏன்னா வந்து ஆன் பிரேம்ல பார்த்தீங்க அப்படின்னா there will be டிஃப்ரெண்ட் ரோல்ஸ். ஓகே, விண்டோஸ் அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேட்டர் தனியாக இருப்பாங்க, லினக்ஸ் அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேட்டர் இருப்பாங்க, நெட்வொர்க் இன்ஜினியர்ஸ் இருப்பாங்க. ஓகே, பிகாஸ் பிசிக்கல் இன்ஃப்ராஸ்ட்ரக்சர்ல நம்ம ஏடபிள்யூஎஸ்ல ஜஸ்ட் ஆன் ஒன் கிளிக் வி ஆர் கிரியேட்டிங் அ லோட் பேலன்சர். ஓகே, பட் பிசிக்கல் இன்ஃப்ராஸ்ட்ரக்சர்ல தே பிசிக்கலி ஹேவ் அ லோட் பேலன்சர், ரைட்? ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி நிறைய நெட்வொர்க் காம்பனன்ட்ஸ் இருக்கும். ஓகே, ஓகே, ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி மல்டிபிள் இது வந்து இதில் இன்வால்வ் ஆவாங்க.
Okay.
So this is about the thing. So I'll share this PPT. Okay, so இதை நான் முடிஞ்சிச்சுன்னா I will the definition எல்லாமே I will create a separate slide and send it tomorrow. Okay, about this rehost, relocate இது எல்லாமே பத்தி. So other than that, so நான் எழுதுனதை தவிர இது எல்லாமே I will share it. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all for attending. Happy Sunday. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. See you. Wish you soon.
Thank you, Shyam. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.